Heidi here from Rain Country Homestead. God is good all the time. Today I'm going to show you how I make my own special whole wheat organic pie crust. I've been getting requests for this for many years, finally getting on it. So I hope you like this and enjoy it and learn something from it. So I'm going to get started. Now, I know everybody has their own method of making a pie crust, their own special way of making it flaky. This is just my way. You can try it and see if it works for you. I've been making pies since I was 14, and yeah, it's just always been kind of one of my specialties. Now, what I have in here is whole white wheat flour that I ground by hand on my Country Living grain mill. Now you'll see that in another video in my what's it called, A Day in the Life of Rain. But I'm also going to do a video in the future on just the grain mill and how I use it and different kinds of wheat berries and stuff you can use in there and all that. But I do it entirely by hand and I love it. And anyway, so I get my exercise doing that, and it's nice, fresh, tasty, whole wheat, healthy for you. It's got the good healthy fat in it. So and for this I would recommend the whole white wheat, not red. Red wheat is what gives everything that dark color and the more bitter taste, which is not my preference. White wheat is it's a sweeter taste. And then I've already added the salt before I thought about it, and this is Himalayan salt. And I've said this before as well, the only two salts as far as using for baking and everything that I really like to use are the Himalayan salt, and my very favorite is the Redmond real salt. So I recommend either one of those because they're high in minerals and it's good salt. When you get real salt, it does not raise your blood pressure. It's that junk you buy in the store that's been purified. If your salt is white, it's garbage. Use it to kill vegetation and slugs. Don't use it for eating. Okay, so now that I'm jumping the gun here on the water. Now that I've got the salt in there, and I use my big fork and I just mix it in there good. Now the two fats, I use two kinds of fats. And here I go again. Every time I think I've got everything set here ready, I don't. I use organic palm shortening. I get this one. This is Tropical Traditions, and I'll put a link to that in the description box. I'm sure there's other real good ones out there, but if you go to Tropical Traditions, you can read how it's made. That's when it comes to palm shortening, you really want to check that out. Do not use Crisco. It's not made for human consumption. Okay, so I do this by feel and by look and by texture. I go roughly half and half on these two fats. This is Kerrygold butter, grass-fed butter. It's, in my humble opinion, it's the very best. And I get mine at Costco because they have the best price on it. And it's worth the investment because when you're getting a good grass-fed butter, you're getting all those minerals and good things in there that tend to get taken out or just are not present, period, in the regular cheaper butter that you buy, that comes from cows that have been injected with all kinds of garbage. Anyway, so I take my fork, and what you want to do is you want to break that up as small as you can. Once I get to a certain point, I use that, I'm pretty sure I'm going to need a little more fat in here than that. I cannot tell you in measurements how much is in there. Now, I do measure out the flour. It's 2 cups of flour because for every single pie crust you do, you want 1 cup of flour. And since I'm making an apple pie, here's my apples all prepared. You can see it's very dark because Mr. Rain likes lots of cinnamon. And that's Ceylon cinnamon, organic, by the way. And apples from our tree. Anyway, so yeah. And then you'll want, for each single pie crust, you want a half teaspoon of salt. And I don't measure that either. I just kind of go by the way it looks. And if you watch any of my other baking videos, you'll see that's how I do it. Now, if you watched my turnover video, this is very much the same way I make turnovers. Because the crust or the pastry part of it is done very much the same way. There's very little difference. The only main difference between this and the turnovers is that for my pie crust, I use the half and half because I find the palm shortening makes it flakier than the butter does, but the butter gives it a really nice flavor. So I like to do the half and half. Now, I'm actually surprised by the feel of this. It's pretty close. You can see how it clumps. I might add just a little bit more shortening. I'm thinking it doesn't really need it though, because that feels pretty close. I'll add just a tad bit more of the shortening, because this shortening is what's going to make it flaky. Again, stay away from Crisco or any other vegetable shortenings. That stuff it's not made for human consumption. Look at the history of how that came to be, and might be a little surprised. Originally, it was made for candles, not for human consumption. So, again, I'm mixing this in with a fork. Once I get to a certain size, I use my fingers and I just keep rolling it like that. Sometimes I'll roll it on the back of my hand because it's a little more sensitive back there and I can get a better feel to how small it is. Your goal is to get your pieces broken up as small as possible. You want it very, very fine. Can you see that consistency? I don't know if I should bring this closer to the camera. This is about where you want it. Oops, see, now I'm throwing it on the floor. I'm so messy when I'm baking. It's kind of a running joke around here. Anyway, that's what you want it to look like. Almost like sand. Because the finer you get that, the more flaky your crust is going to be. Now, you want ice water. And as usual, this is me, remember, this is filtered rainwater. I do not use tap water for anything we ingest. It's only used for washing. Because we don't like the fluoride, though we've protested, we get ignored. And then the chlorine that really does have to be in there for city water, you really don't want to be taking that in either. The fluoride is absolutely unnecessary. And if you even read your is it yearly or bi-yearly water report, it even says in there it's a waste product. Anyway, but anybody who's following me probably knows the ills of fluoride and why it should be avoided. So I use filtered rainwater. Even my ice cubes are filtered rainwater. I have an ice maker, but I don't use it because I fill all of my ice trays by hand to make sure I'm getting the good rainwater. Now I like to have a spatula. This is not, it must be dirty because I haven't washed my dishes yet today. I've got the water heating up on the wood stove, and yes, this is the first day so far for this season I've had to build a fire, unfortunately, because I was freezing, and now I'm burning up, so now I've got the door open, which I knew that was gonna happen. Anyway, so I cut it in half, and I'm only going to show you how I roll out one. I'm not going to show you both because that's too time consuming. Now, mostly this is supposed to be about how I make my pie crust, but it's always a good idea. People have different methods of rolling out their pie crust, and my method is probably different than most. I don't know, because that's just the way I do it. It's the way I've always done it. Well, maybe rolling it out is going to be about the same. I don't worry as much these days like I did when I was a kid and I was just learning how to do this, trying to get it absolutely perfectly round, because that's a waste of time. You're going to end up cutting off the edges anyway, so what the heck does it matter? So anyway, roll it out to a roundish shape. Well, darn it. Then there's always that. That happens. That's fun. Just press it back on there, no big deal. Get a little more flour. I do use, even though the crust itself is 100% whole wheat, It is going to make it fall apart a little easier, so you have to take a little bit more care, just a little bit more delicate. But since this is fresh ground flour, I love the taste of this and like it so much more, so much better in my pie crust than using white flour. I just use the white flour for rolling. And by the way, this is organic, non-GMO. Try to stick with that when it comes to it, you know, as much as possible. So this is how I get it off the counter. Now some people will like to wrap it around their rolling pin. For some reason, I've tried that. I just don't like that. It just does not work for me. So anyway, that's how I do it. I just carefully use the spatula, lift it that way, fold it twice, and then I just unfold it in the pan. And you'll see it's not perfect. Not as worried about this. You don't have to worry so much about stretching it if you're baking the pie crust with the fruit in it. If you're doing a pre-baked pie crust, you don't want to stretch your pie. You don't want to stretch it. You don't want to press it in there because it'll shrink when you bake it. So if this was like when I'm making a chocolate cream pie, I would lift it up on the edges and then push it down that way to prevent stretching it. And then I'd poke a whole bunch of holes in the bottom. Now some people put weights in there, like I've done the bean thing. To me that's just kind of a pain, you know, to keep it from shrinking up. But you don't really need to I'll put a few holes in here, but since I'm doing an apple pie, I really don't need to do that. So I've already got, I think I'm going to put a little bit more flour in this. It just looks like it needs more. But anyway, like I said, I wasn't going to show the whole process. This was supposed to be just about making the pie. Maybe I will show the whole process, because maybe you might want to see how I put the top crust on. So anyway, if you're doing a fruit pie, put your fruit in there. Again, I use a little bit of fresh ground organic nutmeg in this. Organic cane sugar. Again, I'd like to use coconut sugar, but I have a feeling Mr. Rain wouldn't like that one as much. So I'll stick with the cane sugar. To me, that looks like it could have used a little bit more apple. Take some more of your butter. If it's good, healthy butter, then it's good for you and you should be enjoying it. Not margarine. Margarine is very, very bad for you. Just like the vegetable shortening. But if it's a good, healthy, grass-fed butter, you should be just living it up with that. It's full of selenium and vitamin D and just a whole bunch of wonderful good things. So I'm going to go ahead and roll this out. Suppose if I decide I don't want all this in here, I can cut this part of the video out. Keep it short. I've been trying to keep my videos shorter, not like 45 minutes. Like, good grief, my raspberry turnover video. I'm wondering how many people actually watch that thing all the way through. Poor people. Me and my health rants. But anyway, I'm rolling that out. Again, I'm not too concerned about it getting perfectly round because I'm going to trim off the edges. Now, on this process, when you get here, if you want to keep it simple, sometimes I like to get real fancy with the design with the knife. Other times, I just try to keep it a little bit simple. So in this case, I'm gonna keep it simple. I got a little cookie cutter here. I just grabbed whatever was on top. Just as a star. Lift that out carefully, and you're gonna bake that separately. And then, again, just like before, you want to gently, this is going to be even trickier because, again, the whole wheat is a little more delicate, falls apart easier than using white flour. And then get whatever your shape is, try to get it in the center of the pie. And then you're just going to unfold it. But, you know, if it works better for you to roll it over your rolling pin and then unroll it over the pie, now you see I got a tear Again, that's gonna happen more when you use whole wheat than if you're using just your regular all-purpose white flour. But hey, it's healthier, it's tastier. Who cares if it rips? It's about the taste and how good it is for you more than it is, you know, if it's got a little tear in it. People don't care about that stuff. Yeah, we all want our pies to look absolutely perfect and beautiful, but come on, really. It comes right down to it. And you can see that I totally, because I'm trying to hurry. I always do worse when I'm getting in front of the camera or trying to demonstrate. Got the pie, I got the star off center. I'm really trying to hurry because I'm trying not to make this video be too long. Don't want to make people suffer. Anyway, so I just trim it off around the edges, fold this up as much as possible, trying to fold the top over the bottom. That will help prevent it from leaking all over the stove, the range, the oven. I'm going to be baking this in the toaster oven. Since I'm only doing a single pie, even if I was doing more than one pie, I'd just bake one at a time in the toaster oven. But I'm not currently running it off of solar power because it's been pretty dark lately. We have not been getting a lot of sun. And the toaster oven and anything that heats uses a lot of power. And I just pinch every now and then. You want to flour your fingers. Pinch the edges. I'm not even paying attention to see if I'm getting this in the camera. Sorry about that, people. Just keep pinching all the way around. Get a nice scalloped edge that way. And this will also help seal your two edges together. Okay, and then these things, along with your star, you're going to throw into another pan and bake those for 15 minutes at about 400 degrees. And then put that star right in the middle of that star, and it looks pretty cool that way. Actually, yeah, I usually do that. I usually bake them separately, and then I'll put this on top of there after it's baked. It works better that way because that will shrink up a little bit, and then this will stay a little more stretched out so that when you set it in there, you'll have a nice little outline. Now, to me, I'm looking at this, and this big star right in the middle should be enough air space, but just to make sure, I'm going to add a few more little holes. You gotta have vent holes of some sort. Otherwise, your pie will bubble over. So there's that. Okay, so that's all for that. I'll get this pie baked up, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's all done. And there you have it. Organic apple pie. All organic. With whole wheat flour crust and grass-fed butter. And then right there you've got, I've got a batch of apple cider vinegar started up with the cores and the peels I took off the apples. That went in the pie. Homegrown apples. And you see how the star thing turned out? Yeah, I got a little dark. But actually Mr. Rain, he likes it that way. And since this is for him, it's all good. He's going to be thrilled. He gets this whole pie all to himself. He is very spoiled. But then again, so am I. He spoils me too. So, hope you enjoyed the video and possibly learned something new. Take care and God bless.